Okay, we are live. This is a breaking story coming in the last couple of minutes or so. Ultimately, I suppose not totally surprising given the events of the last few days. But the breaking news is that Jeff Hardy has reportedly been released by WWE. This was first reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com. He broke the story just maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, so I thought I'd just go live as quickly as possible so we can discuss this story. Obviously, massive story. We don't know a ton of details about it right now. All that we know, and I don't think WWE themselves has actually confirmed this story as of the time that we're live right now. This could change after the fact. If you're watching on demand afterwards, if you're watching after we've gone live, this could be confirmed by WWE. As of right now, it hasn't been confirmed by WWE, but of course, when Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful does put out a story, he's very rarely wrong, especially with stuff big like this. And he's been first to break stories regarding releases, etc. when it comes to WWE throughout the entire year, with the budget cuts and all that kind of stuff. So it is. It's surprising and it's not surprising, but we'll get into sort of my opinions on it and all that kind of stuff as well. This is the story from the New York Post, who have provided some extra details regarding this sudden release by Jeff Hardy, by WWE rather. So the Post are going with this. They're saying, quote, Jeff Hardy has been released from WWE. A source with knowledge of the situation tells the Post. According to the source, WWE presented Hardy with the option of going to rehab. Hardy declined and was subsequently released from his contract. Now, of course, this stems from Hardy being sent home off the road last weekend. Hardy was sent home from WWE's tour this past weekend at an untelevised show in Texas. Hardy was in the main event alongside Drew McIntyre and King Xavier Woods against Roman Reigns and the Usos. Toward the end of the match, Hardy left the ring and walked out through the crowd. As I mentioned, Hardy's release was first reported by Fightful. Reports indicated at the time that Hardy, who has, of course, long documented battles with addiction and substance abuse, was going through what was described as, quote, a rough night at the time by Sean Ross Sapp. Matt Hardy, of course, we covered this on the channel here, his brother, Matt Hardy, touched on these reports, not the release reports, but the concerns about Jeff Hardy's well-being, etc. He did a Twitch stream on Monday, and he said, quote, I did speak to Jeff for a little bit today, and he's okay, he's good, I think he'll be fine, but once again, this isn't my business, and if he wants to go into it in more detail, then he'll do it himself. Jeff is okay, he's at home, and he's okay. It's not my business. It's not my story to tell or explain, and besides that, I wouldn't be able to do it justice anyway because it's not from my perspective. So I love my brother, and I just want my brother to be okay and healthy. Now, a WWE spokesperson couldn't be immediately reached for comment by the New York Post when they ran this story. Of course, maybe this again will be confirmed later on after we've wrapped it up here, but when I spoke about this previously, and I can get your comments up on the screen, by the way, so we will do that. For instance, you can see here, Zaria says, let me see if I can actually move that across a bit better so you can see the full comment. There you go. Concern for Jeff's family. If it's a rehab/drug situation, AEW may not touch him. I think, to be honest, Zarius, and I appreciate the comment, I think, to be honest, at this point, we talk about, AEW or Impact or going wherever. It's not even about that. It's not even about that right now, is it? The most important thing is that Jeff Hardy gets the help that he obviously needs. He, according to the Post, and again, these are unconfirmed reports, I suppose, when it comes from the Post, until someone like a Sean Ross Sapp, PW Insider, etc., officially reports it, that he turned down that offer of rehab. We'll speak about that more in detail then, but if it is a case that he was offered rehab, and you need to shape up or fix up, and he said no, that's the most important thing right now, is that he gets the help that he deserves. It's not about going to AEW. You mentioned there, why would they want to get involved in this situation right now anyway? Impact Wrestling would be the same, I would assume. I don't know. But again, it's surprising, but it's not surprising. I think the surprising nature of it is that it's all escalated very quickly. And I think a lot of people, myself included, really wanted to give Jeff the benefit of the doubt when it came to what happened at the weekend, and weren't quick to judge. And I think we were right to do that. And I still stand by that. You shouldn't, just because of someone's past, you shouldn't always assume the worst. In this case, it might have been what we had imagined, but you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You can't judge people on their past mistakes or their past transgressions or anything like that. But it's just sad because I, like everyone, I'm a huge Jeff Hardy fan. I've been a massive Jeff Hardy fan since I was a kid. Like when I first started watching pro wrestling, Jeff Hardy as a child is always one of your favorites. And even to this day, he's super over. When crowds returned and all that kind of stuff, he was still super popular. But it's the same issues that look to be plaguing Jeff, and that's... he's not even disappointing. It's just sad to hear. It's sad to hear because addiction is very real and substance abuse is very real, and it's tough. It's really, really tough. And Jeff Hardy, Lord knows he's done enough for us. Lord knows Jeff Hardy's done enough for us, the fans of pro wrestling. It's time now for him to focus on himself and get himself ready and square and in a better place. And I think back to those storylines that they were doing last year when Jeff came back after WrestleMania. The storyline he was doing with Sheamus, and about the abuse and the substance abuse and coming back from it and throwing the urine in the face and all that kind of stuff. And I remember at the time being so uncomfortable with it, and the hit and run thing that they did with Elias and Sheamus and Jeff Hardy. I remember being so uncomfortable with it because at the time I was saying that's someone's real life problems. And again, I think he last went to rehab, I think it was at the end of 2019, because there was a couple of times where I think he had public intoxication and he might have had a DUI or something like that. And I remember at the time thinking, this is way too fresh. It's way too fresh to be making a story out of it and to be profiting off it. And fast forward a year later, and these issues are raising their head once again. And I think, shame on WWE for doing that angle at the time as well. It's a shame. It's a shame. But ultimately, I just hope this is the pathway to him getting the help that he needs, obviously. Again, the concern would be that he declined WWE's offer, and I don't know if that necessarily, and I can't think for him, and I don't want to think for him, and I don't want to try and speculate or anything like that, so I'm trying to choose my words wisely here. But if that story's accurate in the sense that he declined the offer, does that mean he doesn't think he has a problem? I don't know. I really, really don't know. But it's an incredibly sad situation. It's a really sad situation. David says, I don't think they'll have him back again. Surprised considering what Matt was saying recently. But even with that, David, again, it's like the comment earlier by Zarius that it's not necessarily about the location. It's not necessarily about the promotion or anything like that. It's not about Jeff Hardy wrestling. It's about someone being healthy. It's about someone being free of their issues, and these issues that have long plagued Jeff Hardy. And like I said last weekend when we saw that story, we all thought the worst. But we did our best to be like, okay, let's give Jeff the benefit of the doubt here, and let's hope that this doesn't lead to what we've seen before when it comes to Jeff. And again, that's the concerning thing certainly with him. But as I mentioned, we don't know a ton of details about this right now. In fact, I'll try and get up social media, because again, it's a breaking story, so you're gonna have to sort of bear with me when it comes to this story about Jeff Hardy. If you are just joining us, Jeff Hardy has reportedly been released by WWE. Of course, this was first reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com. Subsequently, now it's been expanded on by the likes of the New York Post, who are saying that Jeff Hardy declined an offer to go to rehab, and because of that, WWE subsequently decided to release him from his contract. And again, as I mentioned before, people will speak about, is he going to go to AEW or is he going to go back to Impact? It's not the time. It's not the time. To be honest with you, that discussion shouldn't even be a thing. That discussion shouldn't even be a thing until Jeff Hardy's completely healthy and square. And at this point, he needs to take the time to make sure that happens. Again, it's both surprising and not surprising, I guess. But again, I'm just looking at some of the stories here. Like a lot of people just again reporting the breaking news when it comes to Jeff Hardy. The hope is that he's going to be okay going forward, and it's tough. It's really tough. And I think also as well, you do have to. A lot of people will probably go after WWE because of this situation right now, and I don't think that's fair. I'm very critical of WWE and the product and all that kind of stuff, and rightfully so, and I think it's justified. In this situation, what can they do? What can they do? It's not as if they had a wrestler that's having addiction issues and they didn't try to help him. That the offer of rehab was there. The offer will still be there. We spoke about it recently when it came to Impact Wrestling, and how WWE's got that open offer for anyone that was ever under contract to WWE, that they can get help for addiction or they can get rehab completely paid for by the company. And this isn't a case of WWE not wanting to help Jeff Hardy. WWE's absolutely wanted to help Jeff Hardy. They offered him the opportunity to go to rehab. They offered him help. And if the person themselves isn't willing to help themselves, then the hands are kind of tied and they do have to cut loose. At the end of the day, this is a publicly traded company and it's a business. Where I will criticize WWE, though, is this exploitation of people's past issues, or sometimes current issues at the time, when people are going through issues in real life and they portray them on television because they know people are talking about it. That's wrong. The storyline that Jeff Hardy did with Sheamus last year, that was wrong. Or every time, they tried to get it in every single promo when it came to Jeff Hardy, frankly, didn't they? If you were feuding with Jeff Hardy, what did you have the heel do? Oh, we'll just talk about Jeff and his substance abuse. Talk about low-hanging fruit. And again, that's nothing to be made a mockery of. I know you're trying to be real, but this is the same company that has Happy Corbin. It's the same company that just has bizarre writing from the 1980s. So quit trying to be real and edgy and stop trying to exploit people's problems on television. Again, I'm not criticizing WWE for the way they've handled this situation. They tried to give Jeff Hardy help. He turned it down. Their hands are tied. They have to release him. But when it comes to his actual, exploiting that when he was healthy and going, well, that stuff in the past, let's make a storyline out of it. How is that meant to aid someone's recovery, frankly, as well? Again, Jeff Hardy, when he was doing that storyline with Sheamus last year, he was months out of rehab. Months out of it. Months out of his last arrest. He was still, I think at the time, because of the backlog when it came to COVID in terms of these legal issues, he was still having to go to court for one of them. And yet he's portraying on television, or he's doing a storyline on television about how his mistakes are in the past. Well, they're not. They're still in the legal system. Yet WWE's making money off that. And from someone that's trying to recover, and trying to overcome these issues and trying to take it one day at a time, you have to go to television, and then the whole storyline is that you're a massive junkie. I mean, that just doesn't seem right to me. That really doesn't seem right to me at all. But again, it's both surprising and not surprising, I guess. I don't know what the exact word is. I don't know what the exact word is of a situation whereby when it happened, you went, I mean, I hoped it wouldn't come to this situation, but it obviously has. And that's a massive shame. We'll take a look at some of your comments as well. Chris says, I'm at work right now and I'm seeing the news and I can't stop crying. Chris is obviously very upset by the situation. David says, maybe he'll eventually be in AEW. For now, I just hope he can get better again. And look, who knows what the future will hold, but I think the talk of promotions and he's going to reunite with Matt Hardy, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Pro wrestling pales in comparison to one's health and happiness. If Jeff Hardy never wrestles again, but he can get completely healthy and put these issues in the past, I'm fine with that. Jeff Hardy's 44. He's done more than enough for the pro wrestling industry. He's done more than enough in terms of putting his body on the line for our entertainment. If Jeff Hardy never wrestled again, announced he was retiring today, but he was getting himself completely healthy and straight, I wouldn't have a problem with it because the person has to always come first and the health always has to come first. Jeff has got a family. Jeff's got a wife and 2 kids as well, and they have to be remembered in this as well. So when we can talk about promotions and we can talk about who's he going to face if he goes to AEW and who's he going to go, could he go back to Impact as a former Impact champion? It's a conversation for a later date, and it's a conversation for when Jeff Hardy is healthy, and it's a conversation for when Jeff Hardy is mentally ready if he ever wants to step inside of the ring again. Right now, obviously he's got some issues that need to be fixed first. And I would also say to promotions, and I know pro wrestling is kind of the scummiest business when it comes to promoters, when it's the independent scene or even some larger promotions, because make no mistake, you get a company like Impact, they'll be looking at Jeff, and Jeff Hardy's still a big name, and he's still a big draw. And these promoters will be reaching out to Jeff and, well, do you want to work this show? Because Jeff Hardy can still sell tickets. And if any promoter was watching this, I would say, don't book him. And I know people say, well, you got to take money off his table, whatever. But Jeff Hardy's probably fine. What most important, again, he's got a family, and you can't enable people that have these kind of addictions as well. That's sometimes the biggest problem. Jody says, could it be that he just wanted out of WWE and he knew how he could get out of there? I highly doubt that, Jody. I really, really do. When they're saying you could go to rehab, it's probably because you were either intoxicated or you were having issues with whatever substances they were. I would hardly think that Jeff Hardy, a recovering addict, would break his sobriety, regardless of what substance that is, just to get out of his WWE contract. Your sobriety, your health, your happiness, your family are far more important than wanting to go to AEW. We can all think stuff like that, but I think it's very unlikely. Zaria says, yeah, you're right. It's not a where will he jump situation. Just said that because I'm thinking of his family and how he'll make ends meet if WWE aren't going to employ him. Again, Jeff Hardy will be fine. This is 2021 as well. The avenues in which you can make money, the avenues in which you can make a living for someone like Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy could make a living just doing cameo. Jeff Hardy could make a living just by doing autograph signings. Jeff Hardy doesn't need to wrestle ever again. He doesn't. He can, and he probably will. But nowadays, whether it's cameo, whether it's Twitch, whether it's just signing autographs, whether it's doing virtual Comic-Cons and all that kind of stuff, he's Jeff Hardy. He's a big name. Whether it's Jeff, if he wanted just to sell his paintings, he would be fine. He really would be fine. Vince Burr says, Jeff is the nicest wrestler I ever met. I hope he gets better. And that's the most important thing. I hope he gets better. Eagle-Eyed Football. Yes, Eagle-Eyed Football. From United View. Crystal Palace fan. Good result of the weekend, wasn't it, says, Mr. Reliable just came across this channel. Here to support, smash the like button. Well, I appreciate that. And if you are watching from United View, I appreciate you jumping across and joining this side of things, talking about pro wrestling. Eaglefly says, hopefully he can get the help he needs first. Resting comes second to life. And that's it. That's the bare bones of it. That really is the bare bones of it. You can talk about fantasy matches and reuniting with Matt. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Right now, Jeff Hardy's a human being. He's got a family. He's got kids. And the most important thing is that Jeff Hardy's healthy and happy and can live a high quality of life. And again, we don't know the situation that Jeff's body's in. I think, and again, I don't want to speculate too much because again, that's just not fair. It's not fair to speculate like that. But Jeff Hardy's been through a lot physically, and and again, I really don't want to speculate, but some of the substance abuse issues, I think Keith said as well, sometimes he's in a lot of pain. He's in a lot of pain, and sometimes that's part of the problem as well. And if that meant that, Jeff Hardy's just not going to step in the ring again because he just can't do it or he doesn't want to break his sobriety, as a fan, totally fine. He's 44. He's done his fill. He's done more than enough for us as a fan. And again, there are other avenues and there are other options for him to go down. So that's really the most important thing. And as I mentioned, we don't really have a ton more news about this. I can just see there was a tweet by Big E, WWE champion Big E. This is in the last minute or so. He said, quote, Jeff Hardy is so beloved by his fans and his peers. I've never heard a negative word about him, and he's always treated me with such kindness. Just wishing him and his family the very best. So Big E sending his well wishes to Jeff Hardy. And again, I know people will talk about the year and budget cuts and all that kind of stuff. This has nothing to do with budget cuts. This isn't anything to do with WWE trying to trim the fat of their budget or the bottom line or anything like that. What this really does have to do with is someone being healthy rather, and happy as well at the same time. But big credit there to Big E. Big credit to Big E for talking about that because sometimes people don't, in these kind of situations. But I think what we need to do right now, is make sure that he gets healthy and happy. Just trying to see if the rehab element of this is true. Again, it was what the Post was saying, but I don't know if Sean Ross Sapp himself has confirmed this. Yeah, Sean Ross Sapp has confirmed what the New York Post was saying. So, as I mentioned, he was first to break the story that Fightful had learned that WWE had released Jeff Hardy. He also said, quote, "I've heard WWE offered Jeff Hardy help and rehab, and it was not accepted. Here's hoping things get better for him." So, what the New York Post was reporting is accurate. It would appear that. And again, if you are just joining us late on, Jeff Hardy has been released by WWE. WWE presented Hardy with the option of going to rehab. Jeff Hardy declined and was subsequently released from his contract. Of course, this stems after Jeff Hardy left the ring during his match where he was teaming with King Xavier Woods and Drew McIntyre against Roman Reigns and the Usos last weekend. Worked the majority of the match, tagged out, left through the crowd. He looked sluggish as he was coming into the ring. If you watch the video of him making his entrance, he does look off. And people didn't really know what that was at the time. But after the incident on Saturday, he was sent home from the road by WWE officials. And I guess subsequently they offered him the opportunity to go to rehab, and he turned that down, I guess in addition to other help. And WWE was forced, really, they had no real other decision, but to release Jeff Hardy from his contract due to these issues. So, look, it is very unfortunate, and it is very sad. And I do really sympathize. I do sympathize for Jeff, and I sympathize for everyone involved. I really do, because it's not a nice situation. It's a horrible situation, and as I mentioned, hopefully he can get the help that he obviously needs, and he deserves for everything he's done in the wrestling business. It is a shame. It really is a shame. If you are new to the channel, be sure to smash a like on the like button on this video. Let's see if we can get up to 20 likes. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. But again, the breaking news, Jeff Hardy has been released by WWE, turned down an opportunity to go to rehab after that incident last weekend. Once you, of course, get more details on this, once we get more news about really what the update is when it comes to Jeff Hardy's future, and more details on the situation, the only real details we know now, and again, WWE hasn't even confirmed this. This has just been widely reported by very respected journalists that would know. But once we get more on it, we'll report it. Obviously, we'll talk about it here on the channel, but that's kind of the situation here. Let's see a couple of your comments as well before we wrap things up. Sharkboy420 says, yes, Jeff in AEW, but first he needs to get him some self-health. I mean, the thing is, again, when we talk about the AEW, and I know that's where people's mind might go, but again, I just don't think that's even right to really do that right now. From an AEW point of view, from Tony Khan, why would you sign someone that's just been released by WWE because they declined rehab? You would want to know what went on. You'd want to know all of these details. You'd want to know if he's healthy, is he straight, all this kind of stuff. You'd want to know this, and ultimately that will be a thing. So I don't expect to see Jeff Hardy in AEW anytime soon, to be honest with you. Furthermore, he'd have to serve his 90-day non-compete clause anyway. So Jeff Hardy isn't appearing anywhere until, we're talking about maybe late February, early March at this point, right? 90 days, about 3 months. So yeah, probably late February, early March, something like that. So don't expect to see anything from Jeff Hardy when it comes to pro wrestling anytime soon. But look, guys, of course, as I mentioned, if we get any more updates about this story, we'll talk about it here on the channel. We'll probably go live, or I'll record a short video or something like this. But we'll see. Ultimately, it's a sad story. It absolutely is a sad story, and but let's hope it's one that does have some form of a happy ending, in that ultimately Jeff Hardy gets the help that he needs. Obviously, in this situation, obviously it could still, even if Jeff was in AEW, or even if Jeff goes to Impact or whatever it may be, the NWA, WWE will still be more than willing to help him in this situation, and that's the most important thing, is that he gets the help that he needs. But anyway, guys, we're going to wrap things up here. As I mentioned, if we see anything else, we will talk about it here on the channel. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.